आज ईद का दिन
Huzur says
हमें
that
इस बात
today
की
is the
तरफ
day
तवज्जो
of
दिलाने
Eid-ul-Fitr.
और याद करवाने वाला होना
That
चाहिए।
is to remind us and to bring to our mind once again that the enjoyment of the virtues that we have tasted during this one month, that we have to continue. And those things to which generally which we are mindful during the month of Ramadan, among them is worship and the charities and financial sacrifices, and also to look after the needs of humankind. And all these things collectively, under a very special circumstances, that time has finished to do it collectively. But the responsibility of a believer is this, that not only to continue the virtues, but also to advance in that and make progress. So from tomorrow, the days of the blessing of the Ramadan, they finished, in which we offered the obligatory and optional prayers. But the other prayers and the looking after the discharging the duties towards fellow beings, we have been drawn the attention that should continue all the time. We paid attention to optional prayer, we have to continue that. And the regularity in the prayer that took our attention, that we have to continue. And the training to control oneself that we had, we have to abide by that. And the kindness to mankind, the feeling of that, the sentiment of that, we were drawn attention. We have to keep doing that. Some people say that yes, we do try that, offer the prayer regularly. But if they scrutinize themselves and peep into their heart, so then this is a deception from their heart. They actually do not do and put in any effort. The offering of the prayer, the responsibility of that, they do not understand. If they understand this thing, so then their effort cannot be ending in failure. After all, during the month of Ramadan, the very good condition is there. Why? Because in those days, the true, real effort is done. People are determined to get up early in the morning and accept somebody who is very adamant, and one is not put to shame even looking around him for the purpose of Sehri, and also to look by looking at other people, people get up. And even the laziest people, they are generally people, they try to offer the Fajr prayer on time. This is the true effort, and the result of that we always see. So this point should be remembered always, that the task, the 70% result is not there. For that, actually, in the true way and with the passion and feelings, the effort has not been made. So today, we have to make a very firm resolve today that in order to perform all the good deeds, we will put in our dedicated effort. We will not be deceived by ourselves that we are trying to do that. When this will be done, only then our Eid would become the true Eid. Only then the pleasure of today, the joy of today, will be covering the whole year. And this is the real purpose of Eid. And if that is not there, so then to get ready today and have good food and to meet the people and make other programs, all these things are absolutely useless. The real spirit is behind all the enjoyment of today, that 1 month particularly for our own tarbiyat, under the command of Allah Almighty. Those things which were permissible, we stopped ourselves from doing those, and we resisted ourselves. And today, by the grace of Allah Almighty, we are celebrating the happiness of this, that we have spent this month successfully. But along with that, we also make a promise that because of the training of this month, the duties towards fellow beings and duties towards Allah Almighty, towards that we will be continue to pay attention to these obligations. So this thing should be well printed in the minds of all of us very clearly, that during the year, only 1 month, by following the commandments of Allah Almighty and discharging the right of that, we have not fulfilled the objective of our life. And not only for 1 month discharging the duties towards fellow beings, we have done our duty. This will be achieved when we will establish it permanently, establish these things. And the laziness which have been removed because of the month of Ramadan, now we will keep those things away all the time. And those people who have done something good, then we will continue to perform those things, so that we can get the pleasure of Allah Almighty. And every day for us should become the day of Eid. And every day which dawns upon us, that should be making us the recipient of the mercy of Allah Almighty. By following the path of righteousness, we have to be very alert and very active in our obligations and worship. Regarding the duties towards fellow beings, paying attention to that, we have to look after the poor people among the relatives and the closely related people. We have to be very kind in our treatment, and we have to cleanse our hearts from self-ego and the kindness to mankind. We have to establish high standards of that. I want to draw the attention today to the responsibility towards fellow being and discharging this responsibility. To discharge the duties towards the servants of Allah, that is also a responsibility and comes under the category of worship of Allah. And the true understanding of that has been given to us by the promised Messiah ﷺ, and he has given us this understanding. He gave this understanding. So today we are celebrating Eid today, especially in advanced countries, particularly those Ahmadis who are living in advanced countries, and they are affluent and they are living the life in good conditions. They should keep regard of this thing, that there are many people are living life in the world in very miserable condition. So much so that according to one estimate, 815 million people go hungry because they do not get the food. Every day, out of every 9, there is one person who goes hungry. On empty stomach they go. And every child, there are children who are suffering the lack of nutrition and food. And these facts and figures which are mentioned, according to my estimate, it's not correct. Actually, the people who are suffering from hunger, they are much more than that. In Iraq and Syria and Libya, because of the war, and particularly the children, they are deprived from treatment and food. And this number is increasing all the time. In recent days, on the social media, a picture was being shown. It was written there that a doctor is giving bread to a child, and the child says to the doctor, do you have any medicine with which I should not feel hunger at all? And the doctor cried by listening to this plea of the child. So this picture, whether it is right or wrong, but this is the reality, that the children are suffering because of hunger. But those who are mad in war, they do not realize that what suffering is coming upon children. The children are being deprived from their parents, and not only this much, and they are leading the life of starvation. So anyway, in these conditions, those people who have their full meal with full stomach, and those people who have very nice food on this day of Eid, they should have this realization much more than that we have to take care of these people. The food is something great, but there are people in the world who do not have even the water plentiful for drinking. They don't have, and whatever they find, that is so filthy and full of dirt that perhaps most of us, we would not like even to look at that. Allah Almighty drawing our attention to that and mentioning the quality of the believers in Allah Almighty says in the Holy Quran, وَيُطِعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. Hadhrat promised Messiah ﷺ, he has explanatory translation he has given in this way, that the meaning of this verse is that the true virtues those people do their quality is that they see and sincerely for the love of Allah Almighty, they offer the food which they like for themselves, they give to poor and destitutes and the wayfarers and the captives, and they say that we are not showing any favor to you, rather we do this thing only for this purpose, that Allah Almighty may be pleased with us, and for the sake of Allah we do all these things. We do not expect any reward from you, and nor we wish that you should be thanking us. He has also explained this point, that to spend the thing which you like is a great virtue, and to spend that thing which is worthless, nobody can claim that he has done something good. So therefore, to sacrifice that thing which is liked by you, which you love, even if putting yourself to some difficulty to take care of the needs of other people, that is the true virtue. So by sacrifice to take care of the poor people and to fulfill their requirements, that is to get the pleasure of Allah Almighty, and this is the thing which grants nearness to the people, and that becomes the worship. This service to mankind, that becomes worship, if it is done for the sake of Allah. People during the month of Ramadan, they are mindful of giving sacrifice of donations and sadaqah and charity, and this feeling should be throughout the year. And when throughout the year this thinking is there, and you are taking care of the poor people for the sake of Allah, so then every day would become the day of Eid and give them all the happiness. The worldly people and the worldly governments and the organizations, when they plan according to their own understanding, they plan these things for their help and in order to eliminate the hunger from there. So whatever the people give, 70 or 80 people, they take back for their own management expenses, because they are not doing this for the sake of Allah, for the pleasure of Allah Almighty. They are not doing it for that purpose. Their work and their job and duties, they just want to keep the people under the debt of gratitude. This is the job of the mu'min, the believers, that by worship, as an act of worship, they do it. And the days of happiness, and this true happiness is granted to them when they are taking care of other people. In the arrangements in the Jamaat, they look after the orphans and to give the food and clothes. The arrangement has been there. In poor countries, the arrangement is there, and those who are comparatively well off, and they have to take care of that. And on every occasion of happiness, the share of the poor people should be given to them. And the free treatment of the patients, the Jamaat spends a lot of money on that. The Jamaat provides the water and the food, and the poor students for their educational expenses, Jamaat pays for that. Here, in your own ways, and spend the money here to the needy people, while under the Jamaat arrangement, the help for the students and the help of the orphans, the system is there in that according to their capacity. The people should pay in that. And some subordinate organizations are there, which is being run by the Jamaat. The associations are there. In the Engineer Association, for example, IEEE, with that name, they provide water. When the pure water for drinking, they have set up a hand pump for this word, and solar hand pump are there. When the pure drinking water is provided to those who have been drinking dirty water, and it is available right at the doorstep, then their joy is worth seeing. There are many among us who give the clothes or the toy of their choice, and the happiness that they see in their faces, in the children. Much more happiness I have seen on the faces of those people, those who at their doorstep, they are able to get the pure water to drink. And similarly, Humanity First, it is also doing a lot of work of welfare of mankind, the food, water, education and treatment, and the help at the time of earthquakes and disasters. So all these things are included in Humanity First as well. The members of the community, they contribute their services with a passion. And the other organizations, when they do, by millions of pounds they spend, they can, our people can do it in thousands of pounds. So volunteers, our volunteers go there. So a section of the Jamaat financially as well, and from the manpower on voluntarily, they offer their services, they are performing these duties. So other people should also do like that. And there are other people who do not take part in it. They should also, as I said, on the occasion of their happiness, in these good virtues, good deeds, for the sake of Allah Almighty, they should take part in it. And the fact is that the happiness that you get, and once you are used to this happiness, then that would be much more than these temporary happiness. And similarly, in your children as well, you inculcate this habit that whatever elders they give to them Eid on the day of Eid, the money that they give, and some part of that should be given for the welfare of the children. If you inculcate this habit in the children at this age, so then this habit will prompt them to spend for the welfare of mankind and to be kind to the people. At the same time, they would become the recipient of the blessings of Allah Almighty, and during the hard times of their life, they will be saved, and they would be firmly rooted in virtues. So this feeling and sentiment should be continued in future generations, and this is really the happiness of the Eid. The promised Messiah ﷺ has reminded us time and again that the duties towards fellow being, and they have to have good sentiments for other people. How important is that? On one occasion, Hadhrat Massih ﷺ says that in Sharia there are two main parts. One has to look after those things. One is the duties towards Allah, and second is the duty toward the fellow beings. The right of Allah is that the love of Allah and obedience to Allah and worship and unity of Allah, and nobody to be taken as partner in attributes and person with Allah. So this is Haqqullah, the right of Allah. One should worship and offer the worship and declare the unity of Allah. And not only you declare, but from each and every action, this could be made manifest. And all the attributes in Allah Almighty, never ever to take anybody who can in any way be equal or similar in that. And the second thing is that when Haqqul Ibad, the right of the people is that to your brothers, never deal with them with pride, unjust, and never any bad thing in any way. So that means that there should be no bad thing in your morals, in your character. And apparently these are two sentences, but they are very tough when you put them into practice. It's a great mercy of Allah Almighty on some person who is following both these things. So we should try to find out the blessing of Allah Almighty, and we should never be deprived from that. And what we see in the world, that some people are very hot-tempered and they become angry very quickly. And when this is heightened, then neither the heart is pure nor the tongue. And from the heart, he plans so many bad things, and from the tongue he abuses him. So he says that day and night, this effort should be there, that after that a person has become truly worshipper of one, then he should reform his character, and after establishing in the unity of Allah Almighty, it is very essential that one should rectify and improve his moral character. He says that I see that there are many who do not have any sympathy for their brothers. If one brother is dying with hunger, the other person does not pay attention, and he is not ready to look after him. And if he is suffering from other trials, so they do not do this much, that he should spend a part of their income for this purpose. In Hadith, to look after the neighbor and to be kind to that neighbor is mentioned there. So much so it is mentioned that if you prepare some flesh of meat, then you add the soup so that you can give some to your neighbor. But now what we see is that people only have everything themselves. Never ever think that neighbor is only that one who is next to your neighbor, but your people, other people, they are also your brother, whether they may be at 100 miles distance. So this is the standard of the kindness of the believer, how he should show the sympathy, and how one should go out to feed the people, and one should do the effort for that. And then he says that every person, every day one should analyze oneself, that to what extent he is following these points, and how far he is showing kindness to his brothers. The big demand is from every one of us, that in Hadith it is mentioned that on the day of judgment Allah Almighty will say that I was hungry but you did not offer food to me. I was thirsty but you did not give water to me. I was sick but you did not come to inquire about my health. So those people who will be asked, said like this, they would say, "Oh Allah, when you were hungry that we did not, we did not give you the food, then we did not give you the food. And when you were thirsty, that we did not give you the water. And when you were sick, that we did not visit you to find out about your health." So Allah Almighty says that my such and such servant of mine, when he was in need of that, but you did not pay any attention and did not do anything for his kindness. And his kindness was actually my kindness to me. And similarly, Allah Almighty will say to other people that you showed sympathy to me. So I was hungry, you gave me the food. I was thirsty, you gave me the water to drink, etc. And that community would say that, "Oh our Allah, when did we do this thing to you?" Then Allah Almighty will reply that a certain servant of mine, when you showed kindness to him, that was kindness to me. And he says that actually the kindness to the people of Allah, that is the kindness to Allah. And what else could be there? That the kindness to a servant or to a poor person, that is attributed as this kindness to Allah Almighty, as if they have done kindness to Allah. And giving one example, he says that normally it happens in the world that if a servant of a person goes to a friend of him, and that person does not look after them, so then that master whose servant was that who went there, will he be happy with his friend who did not take care of his servant? And if the servant of the master goes there, and if the friend does not look after that servant, so even because of that servant, the master is not happy with his friend. Will that be happy at all? Never. While the fact is that he did not himself suffer any difficulty, but no, the service to that servant and the good treatment is the good treatment to his master. And similarly, Allah Almighty does not like that somebody should be showing disregard to my servant. Allah Almighty does not like that somebody should be showing a cold shoulder to his servants and not come for his help. And his creation is very dear to Allah Almighty. So the one who to the people who does shows kindness, he is actually pleasing Allah Almighty. He says that the morals are the ladder to go to the high stages, and this is the case of the duties towards fellow being, and the person who always look after that, and this aspect of the kindness to the fellow being, and this aspect is something which actually strengthen the discharge of the rights toward Allah. If you establish strong relationship with Allah, then there will be strong relationship with Allah Almighty. And he says that the person who with the human being shows kind treatment, Allah Almighty does not let his faith waste away. And when a person does something for the sake of Allah Almighty, and he help his poor servant for his sake, so then with this way his faith strengthens. But remember that if it is something done, good thing is done for the show off, then that is not for the sake of Allah Almighty. And because there is no dedication and sincerity in that, that does not give any benefit to that. So the contributions and the sacrifices, that should be given for the sake of Allah Almighty, to get the pleasure of Allah Almighty. There is customary that there are lists are prepared, those people who make the contributions, but it should not be for the sake of showing their names, that their names should be added. But there are so many people like this who establish the guest houses here and there, and the real purpose of these people is to get the fame. For the travelers, they prepare the guest house and they make the arrangement of their accommodation. They have enough money, they can do it. They provide the water. But what is the real purpose? Purpose is simply to gain the fame. They do not do it for the sake of Allah. As I said, that in many countries, in the developed country, when they give help to the poor countries, so they do it for their own motives and purposes. So he says that if somebody does something for the sake of Allah, whether it is a very small thing, but Allah Almighty does not let it go waste. And Allah Almighty does reward that. And he say, I have read in Tazkiratul Awliya, a book that a waliullah, a friend of Allah, he said that the rain was there and it continued for a few days. And during these days, he said that an 80-year-old person who was worshipping the fire, he was putting some grain for the birds, for the sparrows. And I thought that he is a kafir, non-believer, and the actions of those people they go waste. So I asked him that as a result of this action of you, are you going to get some reward? I asked him from that who was the worshipper of fire. And he said, yes, certainly I will get the reward. And that waliullah says that once I saw, when I went for Hajj pilgrimage, then I saw that person was going around the circuit, performing circuit, and he recognized me. And he told me that look, I got the reward for those grain which I gave to the birds and which I used to give to the birds, that have led me to Islam. So Allah Almighty, he performed this good thing for the worldly benefit, but he was very happy that the good action of that person actually enabled him and led him to accept Islam. So that became the means of that. Then he says that in Hadith it is mentioned that one companion asked the Holy Prophet ﷺ that during my period of ignorance I did so many spending. I used to spend selflessly for the kindness of the people. Am I going to be rewarded for that? The Holy Prophet ﷺ replied that this is the result of that good thing, that you have been led to Islam, that you have become Muslim. So that is the fruit that you are. Allah Almighty has accepted your virtue and led you to Islam. And he says that makes it very clear that Allah Almighty does not let a minor thing, a good thing from a person go waste. And this is also proved that the kindness to the people, and that becomes the means of protection of the rights of Allah Almighty. This desire should be there. It should not be for the worldly gain, but we have to do it for the sake of Allah Almighty. And this becomes a means of protecting the rights of Allah Almighty, towards Allah Almighty. So he says that the kindness to mankind is something that if a person leaves that and goes away from that, so then gradually he goes far away. The mankind requires that only then a person can be called a human being, when he is kind to his fellow beings and he is very courteous and does not make any distinction between them. As Sadi has said that all the human beings, they are the limbs of one another, parts of one another. And he says, remember that the circle of kindness is very vast. Don't exclude any person or any community from that. So don't be particularly kind only to one people, some people, or be kind to everyone. I do not say like the ignorant people of today, that you only limit the kindness to the Muslims. No, I say that all the creation of Allah Almighty, be kind to them, whoever he may be Hindu or Muslim or whatever. I do not like the sayings of those people, those who restrict their kindness only to the members of their own community. And there are some people, and they have the views, some of them have this view, and he is giving the example of those people. There are some people, they have this view that if there is a very thick syrup in a pitcher, if you put your hand and then you put that in the sack of some seeds, so then whatever seeds are there, so that much you can deceive the people. This is what these people have made the non-Muslims, some of them. They have taken these examples, and just to deceive the people and to tell a lie. They are the justification that they have, that to some extent you are allowed, and then you put in a syrup, and then all the seeds which are attracted by the hand, up to that you can deceive other people. That is simply very bad. And this is the case of those people who have twisted the Islamic teaching. How fortunate we are, and how full of blessing we are, that Allah Almighty has led us to the real Islam by the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam. And he says that these absurd things of these people, they have done great loss to the people, and people have become like savage and beasts. But I advise you time and again that you never ever limit the circle of your kindness, and you for the kindness you follow this teaching which Allah Almighty has given, that inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsani wa ita'i zil qurba, that first in performing the deed you remember this thing. The person who does good to you, always do good to that person. And the second thing is greater than that, that you be kind to that and give some favor to him. That is ihsan, that is a further additional kindness. But maybe that a person may mention this goodness which he has done, but the highest stage is that one should do and do good in such a way that is as a personal love of that, result of the personal love. And it should be such which shows the personal kindness to that person, and there is no element of show off in that, and not to make people remember like that. Just like the mother looks after the child, so in this nourishment she is not expecting any reward as a result of that, but in the natural instinct and desire is there, and she sacrifices all her comfort for the child, and this is selflessly the mother looks after the child. Now the kindness of this stage is such, which is Itaiz Qurba, and the greatest example is of the mother as she looks after the child. A worldly person cannot have this status and this position, and they do good things to the people, and then they mention that again and again. And when the poor people, they do not meet the requirements, or the governments of the poor countries do not come to their standard, then the plans what they have made for the welfare of the poor people, they withdraw from there. Rather, sometimes they are bent upon taking their life, and this is the reason that some countries they are being victimized, and they are being the target of starvation, and there are some big governments who are doing the same thing. And some people, those who did not obey the Saudi Arab Islamic country, and the people, they are being killed there, and kill their elderly people and ladies, and whatever you can do, you do there. And when this thinking is there, then they do not get nearness to Allah Almighty, because the job is not done for that purpose. So today it is the Ahmadis who have to do selflessly this service, the Ahmadis, and they should also pray that Allah Almighty may stop the unjust people from doing this. And explaining this point, he further says, so if you do the virtue in this way, that whenever when something making the progress, then it goes to its natural perfect completion, the high standard. And then he explains this point further. He says that when out of your natural love and desire, when you do something that is Itaiz al-Qurba, looking after the poor people, and if Allah Almighty wishes that if you want to become truly righteous, then you take this goodness to your natural level. When something out of progress, when it goes there, it goes to that high level, then the high stage you are unable to achieve that. He says that remember, Allah Almighty loves the virtue very much, and He wishes that you be kind to His creation. And if He had liked the bad things, then He would have advised that. But Allah Almighty is pure from doing so. Subhanahu wa ta'ala, how glorious is Allah Almighty. Allah Almighty enable us that we have to set a high standard, and seeking the pleasure of Allah Almighty, we are always performing good deeds for the people, for the sake of Allah, and discharging the rights of people, and serving the humanity, so that the real joy and happiness of Eid should be our way all the time. Now we are going to join in prayer. In prayer, we have to remember our poor people, needy and destitute people. We have to remember them. And those people who are selflessly, those who are discharging their duties towards fellow beings, we have to remember those people. All devotees of life, remember them in prayers. And all those who are the workers of the Jamaat, and those who are serving the community in one way or the other, remember them. And those who are trying to expand the Jamaati workers, and they are financially helping the community. And Muslim Ummah, remember them in prayer. And Allah Almighty may hold back their hands from shedding the blood of fellow beings. Even by doing the bombardment in the month of Ramadan in Yemen, many children have been orphaned, and ladies have been reduced to widows because of this killing, and some have been crippled, and indiscriminate, very unjustly they have done with the life of the people. Allah Almighty stop the hands of these tyrants, and remember the Ahmadis in Pakistan. Every day their circle is being tightened, and remember the Ahmadis in Malaysia, and there are very persecution was done, and also the Ahmadis in Aljazair, and they are also suffering persecution at the hand of the government, and they are being punished. Allah Almighty protect all the people from their vicious thinking, and for them Allah Almighty bless them the true Eid.